Now, Australia, under this new Albanese government, I have to say, really is moving us fast to a kind of apartheid. That is no exaggeration. Already on Labor's agenda, an Aboriginal-only parliament. And cheering it on, by the way, is the ABC, the national broadcaster, which is now renaming cities actually created by British settlers, giving them Aboriginal names instead, in an Aboriginal language that's actually spoken today by not one single person.
Good morning. Welcome to AM. I'm Sabra Elaine, coming to you from Nipaluna, Hobart.
But before we go too far down this route, look at New Zealand. It's gone much further under Labor Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, and not just by having weather bulletins on the national broadcast that read out in the Maori language spoken fluently by just 1% to 4% of New Zealanders, and not even by most Maori.
And in Tamaki, Makaurau, Auckland, a few showers, mainly north of the city. However, tikina atu tō hamarara, keep that umbrella nearby.
Far more important, far more radical is Ardern pushing co-governance, giving Maori New Zealanders, or just 17% of the population, a 50-50 say. And that will start with a 50-50 say on the bodies that manage the country's water infrastructure, called Three Waters. Joining me is Winston, former Foreign Minister of New Zealand, who gave a powerful speech last week warning about what he warned was a threat to democracy. Winston Peters, it's always great to catch up with you. Why is Jacinda Ardern a threat to democracy, as you said in your speech?
Well, we're going to an election in about 15 months' time, and no one would have thought that of all the issues that beset the Western world, and dare I say it, New Zealand, that the very essence of our future democracy would be one of the things that's on the line now. Why is she doing that? It's because they're about a social engineering, political engineering program on which they never campaigned, which was never part of any mandate that they got. It came out in secret and it's being rammed down our throats. And there can only be one reason for that, and it is to gain a political advantage and a purpose that the mass majority of New Zealanders, including Maori, have never heard about.
Now, you say the key to the threat is a change from the system of one vote, one person, one vote. How does that work?
Well, it worked because as one of the early democracies, and Australia's one of them as well, we began in 1854 on our pathway to it. We gave women the vote in 1893, and then we made progress into MMP, a mixed member proportional system, in 1996. And all of that was to ensure that we had a better franchise, but that the franchise or the votes were equal. The design behind what they're doing now is that the vote that one sector has got, a very privileged sector, and made by an elite in that sector, namely the Maori, it will have far more power. You mentioned the water system. In the South Island, there are 20 councils. It'll be controlled in a new arrangement by one council with 6 members from the 20 councils and 6 from the local Maori. But to make a decision, you have to have 75% of the council sitting, that 12 people, 75% of them make the decision. So Guess has got all the power now, and it's all come out of left field with no mandate or authority whatsoever. It was a bill that they had in Parliament when we stopped them in their tracks in 1919. Since the last election, they've put it back up again, and it's on its way.
Now, do New Zealanders with Maori ancestry, like yourself, actually want to be treated so differently to other New Zealanders that they should have much more political rights, you know, a 50-50 say when they're actually just 17% of the population?
Mr. Bolt, there's no Maori who has made those demands in the past like they have of recent times. And we do not want inverse racism. We do not want paternalism that says you're not good enough to be equal, so we're going to give you special rights and special privileges. Remember, these demands are being made in the name of the mass majority of Maori, who are not on the Maori roll, but on the general roll. And second, they're the last ones who'll have their needs like housing, health, education, and first world wages attended to. This privileged group, who claim to speak with one voice, and they don't, because we never spoke with one voice before the British arrived or after, are now going to have tremendous say, way beyond their proportion. And remember, to be able to be one of these people, you only have to recite a Maori ancestor. So you can have one part in 512, have no understanding of Maori history, language, or anything else, but you're going to be one of the privileged groups if this goes forward into the future.
But, you know, people, I'm sure the government will say, well, this is going to help, you know, raise the status of Maori, many of whom are disadvantaged, and what's the harm? What do you see as the help and the harm?
If you wanted a way to avoid dealing to the issues that Maori really need to have attended, that is affordable first world housing, access to a decent health system, access to the escalators of education so you can go as far as you like if you want to be committed to do so, and last, first world wages. If you wanted a way to avoid delivering what they do want and deliver what some elite, woke, cancel culture experts in the Maori world want, then this is the very path that they would go down, and that's the path they are going down. The people who will suffer the most from this will be Maori far more than anyone else, because they'll be left out of the key things that everybody worldwide has always demanded, and those are the four things I mentioned about. Do you remember the American Civil Rights Movement? They kept their eyes on the prize. They wanted access to the best white institutions. Here we're setting up separate institutions, separate names. And you're quite right, every night on the news, I'm hearing all sorts of names for the cities and towns and parts of this country. And what's ridiculous about that, of course, is that in fact, trying to change the name from New Zealand to Aotearoa, they're choosing a name that was never the Maori word for New Zealand, and it does not include the South Island, which is a massive part of New Zealand. And all these ridiculous things are being done, and they have been done in secret on the basis of the Pandora's principle. You know what that principle is? Once out of the box and legislated, you won't be able to change it. And so right here, right now, New Zealanders are going to have to make up their mind that they're going to stop this, because it'll take us straight to the third world.
But Winston Peters, where's the public on this? Because I don't hear that much public debate. I hear people like yourself, I hear people like Don Brash, I hear various people that make very powerful and articulate arguments on this. But it's like most people are either too afraid to say anything about it, or they're relying on the media, which seems to be running dead on this issue. What do you think is going on here?
No, the media are not running dead on the issue. The mainstream media, something far more malignant has happened. They were bought off with a $55 million bribe on the basis that to get this money to help your industry, you have to sign up to these beliefs and these principles. And so they are at the front line of a change. And as you well know, if you're required in the media to have a view or change your view, then you're going to be decided, that's going to be decided by whether you're going to lose your pay next week. And that's exactly what's happened. Where are New Zealanders on it? Well, they're just waking up. But this is a battle that's going to be fought by ordinary people and straight over, around and through the mainstream media, because they're the last vehicle of accountability that you could expect in this country right now. People don't know how bad it's got. We've gone from a fourth estate to a bunch of fifth columnists, and they hate me for saying so. But I can tell you that in the next few months, as this battle takes place, we will see whether the people of this country want democracy, for which they have died on the fields of battle around the world for, or whether they want this new cancel culture, this woke set of principles and policies that no one can understand, based on mythical, legal, and other historic-based arguments. They claim that, of course, this comes from the Treaty of Waitangi 1840. They claim that the Treaty of Waitangi 1840 on the 6th of February was a partnership. And they claim that their franchise is based on that. And as you know, in 1840, there was no franchise anywhere in the world. As you know, we ceded sovereignty to the Crown, and the gift back was equality, like as though you were an English citizen. And they're claiming that whilst no one in England or the whole British Empire was in a partnership with Queen Victoria the day before the Treaty of Waitangi on the 6th of February, 1840, the day after Maori was. So they're rewriting history. It's deceit. And they've put a lot of effort into it. If ever you wanted to
I've read the Treaty of Waitangi. It's got no talk of partnership at all. I mean, they say we cede sovereignty to the British Queen. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But lastly, Winston Peters, I take it you're going to stand for election and fight on this one. That's what I'm assuming. Correct me if I'm wrong. In the meantime, what's your message to Australia?
Well, it's not my job to interfere with Australia's politics, but I have watched the rising call there for the voice, so to speak. Now, at the same time, I have observed Australian politics far more than they possibly observed New Zealand politics. You've seen a serious progress in Aboriginals getting there on their own right. And dramatically in New Zealand, since 1996, we have seen Maori in Parliament in far greater proportions than the actual Maori race is. But that doesn't stop them. They're going to go ahead and make this change regardless. And there's a lesson for Australia in that. If you think that the New Zealand Maori all around the country speak with one voice, you'd be kidding yourself. And dare I say it, I'm not an Australian. The very idea that the Aboriginal people in Australia have one voice is equally ridiculous.
Oh, that's certainly true. I just pointed Jacinda Ardern-Price for a start. Winston Peters, I do hope that we will see you again in the New Zealand Parliament in the next election. Thank you so much indeed for your time. Really appreciate it. Oh, dear. Look, please, people, just look at what's happening in New Zealand before we jump into that same mess. I mean, this is just so ridiculous.